I'm curious, do you guys all have, random assortment kits? Roll pins, O-rings, pins, plastic fasteners, heat shrink, washers, bolts, stainless, cotter pins, E-clips. I have all these assorted sizes of stuff. How do you guys organize it all? Do you guys just keep it in the little plastic bins it comes in? And if so, how do you store it? Just in a drawer? I don't know the best way to do that. Let me know in the comments. All right, as I'm getting prepared to pull this power head, watch a couple videos. I think what I have to do first is detach a bunch of the electrical components so that it's not like the wires aren't holding the power head in when I try to pull it out. This motor does have the electric start, and of course it has a cutoff. Those are kind of the two electrical components that we'll have to disconnect from the rest of this. When you look in the motor, there's obviously a lot more than just two wires. It's not just one wire that goes to the starter over here and one wire that somehow cuts off the motor. Instead, it has another component, which is a rectifier that helps charge the battery when the motor is running so that the battery doesn't die. So we need to figure out, I don't think I need to unattach all of the wires. I think I just need to make sure that the wires that are attached to the motor housing get detached. So we can kind of follow it here. If you look under here, you can see we have these wires here that go into a single sheath. This is for the cutoff. And then we also have here, we have the two wires from the battery that are coming in to the switch, and then one leaves and goes into the housing here. So we then look on the inside of the motor. We have that one wire, this is the cutoff, and then this wire goes to the starter. So we have kind of those two wires that we need to detach. And one of them goes right down here. You can't see it, it kind of disappears under the power head. The other one comes up here. This is for the cutoff. Comes up and attaches. Looks like it goes right here to this terminal. Right. Yeah. How does it do that? All right, so it goes up behind this thing of terminals and then comes up right here and attaches here. So I need to take this one right here off to get the cutoff switch disconnected. And then this wire should be free. And then the one that kind of comes under here, we're gonna go to the other side of the motor, pops up on this side here and connects here at this relay. So I think I can disconnect this plug, probably take this out. This ground here needs to come off, which means I'm taking this whole relay bit off. And then I think this wire is free in that relay. And I think with that, I would say that it would be done, I believe. Let me see if there's any other connections. I think everything else is attached to the power head, and when I pull the whole thing off, it should work. So those are the things I'm going to do. Disconnect here, unplug this, pull this off, take off this, and then there's one other thing. So everything of course needs to be grounded, and this entire system has a ground. It looks like there's a ground wire, but I have to take this bolt off anyways to get the power head off, so that ground will come off as well. So that's, I think, all of the wiring that I need to disconnect to be able to get all of this out. So we'll do that. And then we have, I think, a couple of bolts here. I think we have to take out the bolts on the bottom. I think it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts on the bottom. And then I think the ones that have these rubber, the rubber grommet things that take off the vibration from the motor, we'll take, I think there's 3 bolts, one here. I understand there's one under here, so we're taking the air box off and we're going to take this off again. And then we're going to, I think the last one, you can't really see it. Maybe if I had the right lighting, maybe you can see it now. There it is, right down there, underneath the rectifier. So right there is the last of the 3 bolts. My understanding is I'll take this rectifier, at least 1 bolt off. This rectifier is held on by that bolt. I think you take that bolt off, probably have to take off the fuel pump, and then I can kind of move that out of the way and get to that one that I can barely even touch my finger to. Of course, everything on this motor is just so tight. Getting access is a pain. You know, had they made this housing just slightly bigger, just, you know, a fraction of an inch longer, then this latch wouldn't be in the way, and this whole piece you'd have access to get the bolts off of this entire piece, and you could change the thermostat without removing the power head. But as is, that's what it takes. You got to remove the whole power head to change the thermostat, which is nuts. Hopefully people with this motor, the later versions of it, don't have those same problems. Seems like a design flaw to me, but it is what it is. We're going to get this whole thing apart. And I hear that there's also a grommet that goes bad to the between the power head and between the power head and the water pump. There's a fuel or a grommet, a rubber grommet that goes bad. That might be part of our water problem, and I did order that, so we'll be replacing that as well. Yeah, gives us a chance. We'll clean up the inside of the housing too, so we'll have a nice clean engine when it's done. All right, so when I took the air box off and just getting a better look at where the wires are coming in, I do see there is another ground right here. So it looks like I'll have to disconnect 2 grounds. I didn't know this had 2. But, so we'll disconnect here, back here, here, and here. So it's like here, 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 and here. So those are all the connections, the electrical connections that we need to disconnect. All right, so this go around, instead of taping this entire assembly together so it didn't unwind, I actually found the correct bolt or nut that fit on this and just put it on there. I believe this is a 3/8 by 16 nut. So this is a 9/16 head here. I think this is a 3/8, and I think it's a by 16 thread. And it seems to do the trick. So if you're looking for that, I'm not sure if all these are the same, but I think 3/8 by 16. All right, now I can get access easily to that bolt. And let's see, what other housing bits do we need to do? Well, we got to get to that bolt, take the electrical part off, do that now. All right, so this one is pretty tough to get at, but using a socket screwdriver and a universal bit, I did get this one. That screw can come off. So it's not easy, but using this little universal adapter thing that I got, let's see, what is this thing? SAE flex socket. This is a 1/4 inch. It comes in a set. I think there's a set of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bits in this one. I think I got it for like 20 bucks. So it's like pretty cheap. It's not engraved. You can barely see the text of the size. So this is the 7/16. But it is getting it. So I'll be able to get that nut off to get that electrical connection off. All right, so after I got that off, I did have to do some more than I expected. So I did get that off right here, so I can pull that out of the way. Getting this off, in order to reach that nut down there, I had to take off the entire, I'm gonna take off this entire thing. So different size nut. This one's 5/16. This one I think was this nut, which I think was the 7/16. And then you can see here, these are all the parts that I've been taking off. They are holding on different parts, all the electrical stuff. So this was held on, I had to take this off. These coils were held on, 3 different bolts. This one, forgot to take this off. Goes to one of these 3. But yeah, that all goes on there. These clips were on there. I had to undo these. But now we can reach that bolt. We can reach that bolt. And I don't think these wires are going to be hanging on to anything now. I did have to take off the fuel pump. So that is off. And then now we got, I think what's left is the rectifier, which is this little 5/16. And then I should be able to reach that last nut. Then this power head, take the 6 off under here, and I should be able to get the power head out. These, if you don't have a set of these little swivel things, I recommend you get these universal bits. Just, you know, you can't get a straight bit on this little 5/16. But this universal one gets on there. It's not super easy. Maybe you get used to it using this universal joint style. Once you get it kind of unscrewed, if you don't have it yet, I have one of these little magnet things. They make various kinds of these little magnet things, but it's nice for getting the little nuts off. So that one's a little tiny. Put it in my tray. All right, and now we should be able to get this off. Yep, that should give us access. I think those look all like they're going to be 7/16. So yeah, this set of things is quite helpful. I think this is the 7/16. I'm gonna guess that, oh yeah, that gets on there. Let's make sure that's the right size. All right. So that just gets it, you know, with these straight nuts, or with like straight ratchets, you're just never gonna quite reach those. There's just always gonna be something in the way. But with just a slight bit of angle, you actually can get on them with these universal bits. I'm not sure how much further that has to go. It might be out. Okay, I'm gonna grab my, it is loose. I'll get my magnet here. There is both a washer on there and the nut, and so I can't quite get the washer off. So I guess I have to take the nut out first. Let's see. There it goes. Yeah, this looks like we got 2 washers. Makes it real hard to get it off because there's this little piece of motor gets in the way, pulling straight up. You can't get the washer around it, so you gotta wiggle it. All right. All right, let's get this one right here. This one you could get on pretty easily with a straight bit. You don't need the little wobble. I think that sometimes they call these wobble bits or something. Wobble socket, wobble universal. All right. Number 2. This one looks like you would also be able to get at it with a straight one now that I've got the electrical stuff off of there. All right. And I believe that's everything now inside of the housing. I now just have to get the bolts down here. All right, under here, under there. 3 on each side. It looks like they're 3/8. I'm getting wobble. These are the little wobble things here. Nope, that's tightening. There we go. I'm just going to get them loose for now. Once I have them loose, like this, and the third one right up here. Now I can use the other socket to get the rest. I mean, these motors apparently have lots of grounds. I had a ground here, ground here, ground here, ground here, and a ground up here. So there's a, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, maybe they're all connected, but it seems like that's a lot of grounds. All right, so yeah, just pulled this one out. I'm gonna do the next one. Okay, so these look like they are the same length. I saw online some of these are different lengths. So I know on some of these they're different lengths, but in terms of this one, all 3 of the bolts on this side were all the same length. So I don't know if there's any particular order that you need to worry about. All right, this is kind of hard to see, but I'm gonna try and hold this light as best I can. Right up in here is where the power head connects to the rest of the motor shaft, and it's connected. You know, I've taken those bolts off, but there's still a gasket right there. And I'm guessing that the gasket is attached with gasket adhesive. So to get that off, you need something sharp, like a chisel. So I'm going to try and find something and chisel that off. We'll see what how we can get that off. All right, so I changed the angle of attack just slightly. So I was going like more like this, angled it up a little bit, and just a little bit of a tap. And it looks like it's separated, and we'll see if we can just lift it off now. It's loose. Is there something else? So the wires are just kind of grabbing it a little bit. I don't think, oh, there is a linkage right here for the gear shifter. All right, so there's the linkage for the gear shifter right here is preventing it from coming out. I see this little cotter pin. It looks like that there's a little pin here, and it's held on by a cotter pin, and it looks like if I take that off, then this whole arm comes off. Trying to see if there's anything else. There's an electrical connection here as well. It goes, is that all attached to the motor? Comes around here. No, that goes through there. So, it appears that I have to take off this whole piece. How does that come off? Man, you really have to just disassemble all the electric to get this off. So this wire here, see if I can get you in here. All right. So this wire here, and this is connected to this, and then this black wire comes down, runs around here, goes in here, comes out the front. So that is going to be holding the whole thing on as well. It looks like it's this one little, there's one flathead screw right there. If I take that flathead screw off, it looks like this part disconnects. And then if I take this pin off, it looks like this lever disconnects. And then I think then the motor can come out. All right, rather than disconnecting this little arm, I think what I can do is pull this bolt out, pull this little plate off, and leave that attached to the arm. Here's that bolt. Let's see what, oh, there's a little washer in there, so don't lose the washer. Looks like the washer ends up being a spacer. I'm just going to put that right back where I found it. There we go. So that's loose. I can't get a screwdriver into that wire yet. But now that that's off, now that this is off, I also disconnected the fuel hose here from the fuel pump, because otherwise it would have been tied to the carburetor. But now I think maybe we can lift it up enough that I can get a screwdriver. Yeah, there now I can get a screwdriver. I can get a screwdriver on that nut. And let's see. Yep. That should work. One thing I want to be careful of is not to drop it, because if anything I drop is going all the way down, down into the lower unit. So as I get this off, I grab my magnet here, which of course is. All right, there we go. It looks like it kind of stayed in that wire, which is good. But there's one little, that's a little grippy thing, and a little grippy washer. I'm not sure if that's, seems like that's embedded on there, so that shouldn't pop off. All right, now we should be fully separated. This out anyways, but there is the telltale has a little hose right here, so we'll have to get that telltale hose off there. It looks like it's just kind of pushed on. Let's take our screwdriver and we'll see if we can just kind of wiggle it. Putting a little bit of pressure. So the telltale was just connected. It's just got these little plastic barbed end here. So be careful since that is plastic, but it does grip pretty well. I wonder, we'll be able to jam something out now, like a pipe cleaner all the way through the telltale, which would be good. All right. Now let's see if we can get the power head off. Ah, there we go. Just look at some stuff here. So now this is just totally loose. All right, this goes on top of the little grommets, the rubber grommets. So we'll put that to the side. I don't even know where these loose bolts had come from. Somebody else. I never took that off. I don't know where that came from. What's it doing in here? I'm going to guess other people have done work in here. You can see I got this fairly well cleaned out before, but there's still loads of bugs. And I'm not sure what that is. Crusty stuff. Dirt. So I guess it's a good thing. Look at that. That is, oh, that's the drive shaft there. So I have Molly Lube on that. We'll put more Molly Lube before we put before we put everything back on. This was the gasket here. You can see the gasket is separated now in two. It's connected on there with gasket adhesive. So we're going to have to spend some time cleaning that surface. And I wonder, I mean, this is totally loose. We should be able to, I think, pull this, maybe not all the way off. We'll do some work on it, though. We'll get that cleaned up. Everything in here is going to get nice and clean. All right, I'm going to have to go through and clean this surface here. You see the other half of the gasket is still on there. Under the exhaust housing here, there is, this is the tube that goes from the impeller up into the motor. The water circulates, comes out the telltale. This is the other exhaust, and there's a rubber grommet up in here. So I'll take this off, and we will check that grommet, probably replace it. I'll make sure that I have full free flow, going through here and here. Use some gum out, carb cleaner, just to see if we can clean everything. Mm-hmm.
You know where there's a golf club?
Right there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if this is gonna work, but I have some antique parchment spray paint. I'm just gonna try to touch up the ends. If I hit that meeting surface, I'm just gonna clean it off a little bit. Okay. Kind of like that. Move this right here. And we'll hit that too. We'll get in the inside. I don't really care about the outside. I just want it to look clean on the inside. Okay. I think that's probably pretty good. I don't know what turned this all, these funky colors. But it's covered in grease and grime for sure. I don't like the idea of hitting this rectifier too much with the gum out, but I want to get the outside of it clean. Looks like the inside of this motor once was like this reddish orange color or brick red color. Something like that. Yeah, there we go. I'll make it so I can get at this stuff underneath here. Just going to take it off temporarily so I can get at the underside here. Why is that not coming off there? Oh, fuck. We got one loose, one just broke. That's not good. Okay, well. So it's not good. Two of these are on there to the extent that they're gonna all right, well, before I start trying to reef on that, I'm gonna put some anti-seize on there or some penetrating oil. Right, break that head off too. Two. We lost two. Oh, that's miserable. I can't believe we busted two of those off. And I'm gonna have to try and figure out how to get those out of there. For now, I'm gonna put some penetrating oil. We have something to grip. We'll just put some penetrating oil on it for now, and we'll work on the rest of this. All right, that's the grommet. The grommet that goes bad. It's right there. We can put this, I think, in the parts washer. I'll probably throw this in the parts washer too. Why not? We'll go back to the chisel. See if maybe. There we go. Just took a little bit of convincing. Not too bad. It was just some minor taps with the chisel. It didn't take a lot of whacking. Look at that. Somehow I had mud daubers living in my engine. That's crazy. This. Yeah, that'll make it not flow water. My guess is that's in the thermostat too. This was everything that we were doing here was to get to that. All to get to this thermostat. And I don't know, I mean the thermostat, I don't know how to tell when these are broke, but we're replacing it. Mud daubers. Okay, so you got these. This is the new thermostat. And this, that's the part number, by the way. This is the little rubber grommet. It'll go, I have this all cleaned, by the way, but it'll kind of seat in there and goes around the outside edge. You can see this one doesn't have a little rubber grommet. Here's the old one. So it goes right along that lip. I'm gonna get it on and throw it in there. If you look at this on the inside, there's a little cut on the grommet. You gotta try and seat that I'm going to kind of get it started. And then cut. And then sort of pull it around. There we go. Just like that. I accidentally bought 2 of these gaskets, so I have an extra. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'll need another one at some other point in time. Again, I think that's the part number. I got these off of marineengine.com. And that will go on there. I'm going to look up whether that should get adhesive or sealant. Let me check. All right, so OMC doesn't make gasket sealing compound anymore. This is what everyone seems to use these days, the aviation gasket sealant, the Loctite stuff. This is what I'm going to use. I get mixed reviews as to whether or not any sealant at all needs to go on it. It depends on the gasket, and I don't have the manual. I do know that this is an OEM gasket, so it probably could just go on dry. I didn't see any residue from any gasket sealant on here, but just to be safe, I'm just going to add to the mating surfaces an incredibly small amount. Definitely don't want it to get on the thermostat. I'm just going to put it and use my finger to sort of prep that. Make sure I get that cleaned up. And pull that out. Make sure that there's nothing on that. Okay. Which will just kind of hold everything where it needs to be. And in particular, I guess I don't want there to be, there's a gap right here. I assume water is supposed to flow through that gap. I'm going to make sure that has no sealant on it. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know, I see some brown residue. Maybe it had some gasket sealant, maybe it didn't. It's hard to say. You know, you can see kind of here that there was a little bit of a residue. I'm going to guess they probably did use a gasket sealant. And I think that this probably has not been changed since the engine was brand new. All right, we have the mating surface on this side, nice and clean. And so I'm just going to put a thin layer of the gasket sealant on here, and then we will attach it. All right, we've got just a very thin layer of the gasket sealant on, and we're just going to go ahead and put this on here and line it up. And I'm going to get my first bolt on right there. I'm going to use the triple guard just to, I probably should have put it on all of them, but we will definitely put it on just this one. It just takes a little dab and just makes it work. I use it in lieu of an anti-seize. All right, this is the new little rubber grommet. It'll go on the end of the water tube here. This one, you know, this one has kind of seen better days, this little rubber grommet. I'm not sure exactly how to get it off. Seems like it would just kind of peel off or slide off. Or cut off or anything, really. I kind of want to make sure I get it back on the same way. There we go, it just kind of peeled off. I probably should clean that up a little bit. I think that's it. I think we got it clean enough. Well, this looks like it has a little slice just like the thermostat. And I'm thinking that lip. So I think it was pushed all the way on, but I think it was supposed to be like halfway on, up to that little lip. I think it's supposed to be just like that. There we go. All right. Grommet attached. This is getting pretty clean. This is set in the ultrasonic. Inside's still got a little bit of gunk, but it is what it is. Gotta get this gasket material off. This is all one gasket that goes on the bottom of the motor here. All right, I'm gonna try and figure out how to get these off. My only thoughts, I don't have many. I'm gonna try and squirt some oil. I'm gonna try and let it soak. I'm gonna try some heat. I wish I could get, something on it to try and tap it out. One thing that does help is you just go ahead and tap them a little bit. I'm not whacking it, you're just tapping it to give it a little vibration. It helps, I guess, the oil, the penetrating oil, to seep in. I mean, it feels like it's working. I think it was just spinning. I mean, it is turning. It's turning out. I don't know. Oh, got it. One down. All right. I don't know. You know, just looking at the threads, I don't see any damage to the threads here. And it doesn't look like anything was like caked on. No, I can't tell if they were cross-threaded or what. We'll definitely chase those. Okay, we're coming out now. There we go. Oh yeah. Thank God. You know, all that grease that's in there, this is all connected to the water system. And all that is either going, you know, up into your power block or into the power head. Getting circulated around there. I think I'm about as far as I can get for the time being. I ordered up the extra bolts for the housing here. I have this now all cleaned up, ready for a new gasket. I have the thermostat in. I have the grommet on, the water pipe. So I think we are good to go. I'll just go ahead and stop for the night, and I guess I'll pick this up. Next time you see me, I should have my last bolts, and we can finish cleaning this up. MarineEngine.com just sent me my missing bolts, or the 2 bolts that I had to extract from the head here. Just to compare, so you guys can see the difference. The 2 on the right are the new ones, the 2 on the left are the old, and you can see there definitely was that white anti-seize, which was why those ones came out. I'm definitely going to use anti-seize. This is the stuff I'm going to use, only because it's handles high temperatures. This is an exhaust, so it's going to get hot, and it's relatively cheap. Although this is a motor and this is the exhaust, and there's going to be water going through the exhaust, I don't think a ton of water is going to get into these holes. So I was more concerned about heat. I think, you know, marine anti-seize would probably be best, but it's also really expensive. So this is the stuff I'm using. Put it all the way around. Just like that. All right, now we have the exhaust gasket. We're going to take this. So this gasket is the OEM. It has a sealant already applied to it. So you don't use anything. It's clearly coming out of this already tacky. Not sure if you guys can see that, but it has like a film on it, a sticky film. So this gasket, you do not need to apply anything. You just line it up I think it's reversible. You can go either way. That lines up perfectly. All right, we have our gasket on. We've got our bolts permatexed up. Everything's been chased, all the threads. And now we put this on. You line the grommet here up with this hole right here. That's where the water intake is. And everything else, all the other screw holes, they should also line up. These wobble bits are nice at times when you have just a little bit of an angle. Especially like right here, because I'm trying to get on this one, I'm trying to get around the water tube here. And so it's kind of tough to get in there, but with this, it gets in there pretty easy. And just give them a little bit more oomph with this. I don't know if this has any torque spec. This one's always the toughest, right here next to the water intake, but with that wobble bit, it definitely gets in there pretty well. I think we're good. Everything is now tight and permatexed. I'm just gonna give it one last check. Yeah, good now. Awesome. We now have a head that is back together. We have thermostat replaced, and everything can go back on the motor. All right, if we look down in this exhaust, you will see at the top end, it's hard to see, right there. Right down there, you'll see that there is a hole, and it's kind of like a bell-shaped approach to that hole, and that is where we need our water intake pipe to go. So it needs to be at the very top middle of the wide part of the exhaust. So we'll try to get that lined up as best we can to be right in the center of the top. All right, so we looked at where that hole was, and we need this to essentially, here's the wide part, we need this kind of centered. It wasn't centered, so I bent this so that we kind of have a straight shot at the end, and it's more or less centered now. So we're gonna give that a shot. Okay. There we go. Slid in there. Make sure we've cleared all the electric, fuel, etc. out of the way, so nothing is getting hung up. All right. Okay, so there's some things when you're putting this all back together that you want to pay attention to. I learned the hard way. I had to pull everything like back apart. But one thing, when you put the power head back on, make sure this wire is on this side of this post right here, the throttle linkage gear thing. That side. So when you put the power head in, before you go bolting anything down, get that on that side. Thread this around so that it comes back here like this. All right. You want that before you bolt anything down. Fuel hose, run around underneath the power head. That power line through here. All right. Make sure that these wires are not pinched in here. And then I think then you can start bolting down from the top. Start with this bolt. Well, it doesn't really matter for these white bolts, but put this white bolt on. Put this bolt on. This bolt, remember, it has the ground. I think you can put those bolts on. I had this off. It's tough to get back on if you try to connect all the wires first. So first put this on here. It's got these, I'm not sure why it has it, but it has these little square nuts and they really fall out easily, and it's really hard to get them in, especially the one down here. I used the magnet to try and put it into place, a magnet and a screwdriver, and finally got it. But you definitely, before you connect any of these wires, get this back on. Once you have that back on, connect the rectifier back in. And then, these two bolts, wobble bits or wobble sockets work best. Connect your fuel pump if you took it off like I did. And then you can connect this linkage here for the cutoff for the block for the throttle. Before you take it all apart, in fact, one thing you should do, and if you didn't do it and you're already far along, you want to get pictures of how all of these wires were connected. You have to connect them in a very specific place. You need all these little brackets to go in the correct spots. This one has to go down here. This wire has to come along underneath here. Again, why you don't want to try to connect all of this beforehand, because these wires will try to get underneath this and you won't be able to get it bolted on. So make sure that you get either video or good photos showing exactly where all of your wires go. I think that's the main things I wanted to talk to you about for putting this all back together. The last thing I'm going to do is put the 6 bolts in the bottom. So I'm going to get this. We're kind of to the same point. You've seen it. How I've put everything else together. Make sure that this is threaded under here as well. Make sure you get pictures of your wiring before you take everything apart. Video, I think, works great. Had to take a lot more apart than I expected, but it's all coming back together now. So next time you see it, I should have it all back together. All right. After all that, now we have good water. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do now. We have a good motor. All right. Everything's fixed. I probably will still replace this fuel pump, only because I think I saw a small leak coming out. when I took it off. I think I accidentally let some of this kind of separate, and I don't think I got it back together quite right. So, I mean, it's running, it's idling well, but I think I'll replace that. All right, so there you saw it. The fix did work for the getting the water going through the engine again. The thermostat and cleaning out the thermostat housing was the key. Putting the motor back together, so everything worked. I do need to change the fuel pump. And when I put the power head back on, 2 of the 6 bolts had stripped threads. So the power head actually has to come back off, and we're going to put some helicoils in those 2 stripped slots, and we'll fix that. So fuel pump and helicoils are the next video. And of course, we're pulling the whole power head off again and putting it all back together again. So great fun. And at this point, I've actually sold the motor. It's running well, so I sold it. And we'll hear about that in the next video too. Stay tuned.